Hello folks, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. We're taking a look at IOTX, which is IOTX, I believe. I hope I'm not an idiot by saying that incorrectly. Anyway, it is a coin for a blockchain essentially, and it's been doing some pretty interesting things lately, so I just want to bring that to your attention. Some of my subscribers had asked me to go ahead and cover this recently. So let's go ahead and take a look. Before we do, just know I'm not a financial advisor. I am doing this for educational purposes only. I always recommend you do your own research. If you'd like to join our Telegram community or Twitter, feel free to link in the description below for that, as well as $25 in free Bitcoin from Voyager. Now, without further ado, let's get right to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at IoTeX. Apparently it's not IOTX. Don't I feel awesome for saying that? Anyways, IoTeX is the native coin that governs an underlying blockchain. So let's go ahead and take a look at it now here, and it's done some pretty interesting things over the past few days. So this is the one-day chart, and we'll just take a quick perspective of this first, and then we'll look at Bitcoin and kind of compare the two to see how they are correlating, because I always like to understand, how much freedom one coin has from Bitcoin, just in case Bitcoin goes to heck again. Well, maybe we have a good coin to fall back on, right? So that's kind of the concept. It doesn't always work that way, of course. There's almost always a similarity, but hopefully if it's not severe enough, then it might be a pretty good sign. Based on this recent spike, I would venture to guess that there is something going on here more on the fundamental side that we're not yet aware of. So if you do understand and know what that is, please link in the description below. I think they have like a 3-year anniversary coming up tomorrow on the 30th, if I'm not mistaken. That could be the reason for it. Either way, let's go ahead and take a look at the technicals. So this is the one-day chart. And let's see here. So just to quickly note, the 17th of April was due day for Bitcoin. So let's see if we can find the 17th. That's this right here. So there was a sell-off, and then Bitcoin did continue to fall off. However, on the 24th, it ramped right back up. So that's really close. That does follow Bitcoin to an extent because of the fact that this was a time that Bitcoin was kind of selling off. But it is nice to see that it recovered quite quickly. And speaking of Bitcoin, let's take a look here, because I do want to note this as well. This is interesting how it happened, but I was expecting the support level of 53,300 to be tested and rejected, but instead it blew right through it, but has since corrected itself. So let's see if we can, I wonder if the 15-minute chart shows this. Yeah, there we go. So if you can see that here, we lost support. It became a potential resistance level. And what was it? I don't know, 6-7 hours later, it's up above and it's testing the support level again. So we'll see what happens, but that is quite interesting that it did lose that. Another thing to note too though, and this is the really cool thing about the moving averages here, the 50-day moving average, this yellow guy here, really worked well as a support. So it first worked as a support level 3 times, as soon as the price increased up above the resistance level. And then it became a support. This one was broken, but it was tested twice on the 50-day moving average and rejected. So this tells me that that is a pretty strong support level, and that we should likely see a return back up in the green with Bitcoin. Just because we have 2 major support levels now, and they're working kind of in tandem, if that makes sense. Again, don't know for sure, but just keep that in mind. So ideally, the 100-day moving average continues to fall down, price comes up and breaks through, and then the only other milestone we have to worry about is the 200-day moving average, roughly at about 57,000. Cool. So that's what I want to show you on Bitcoin. Now back to IOTEX. So we always look at the one-day chart first and work our way down. So we're going to look at the one-day, a few indicators, 4-hour chart, and then the 15-minute, possibly a little bit deeper dive. Actually, definitely going to look at the 1-minute chart because of all this price action here that just happened. I want to know what's going on. That way we can find a good entry point for you, right? So, looking at the 1-day chart, what do we see here that kind of sticks out to us? Well, to me, I see the RSI. That's a pretty obvious indicator. Usually that's my first go-to on the 1-day chart, just kind of see what the general sentiment is. And at this point, of course, it's over 70 at about 75, and it's considered overbought. Now bear in mind, and take a look at this here, from the 2 previous times the price has gone over 70 RSI on the 1-day chart, right here, massive recorrection. Okay, right here as well, another correction that lasted basically 2, almost 3 days. So I've mentioned this before, patterns have a tendency of repeating themselves, but they don't have to, right? In other words, it can happen, but it couldn't. But they are likely to happen again. So this has followed a fairly consistent trend, minus the little Bitcoin dip right here. I would venture to guess, and quote me if I'm wrong here, but I would say that this will actually correct itself over the next 2 or 3 days, and it'll follow a similar pattern to this, and it'll follow a similar pattern to this. So if I were you at this point trying to consider an entry point, I'd be very, very careful. Obviously, we'll look at the technicals a little bit closer on the the 1 minute, 15-minute charts. But I can tell you, based on just outside looking in, previous patterns that have a tendency of reoccurring are happening, right? So just please be mindful of that. Just want to make sure you're aware of that. Can't say I didn't tell you so, right? So you've been warned. Now with the 4-hour chart, well, looks pretty darn similar to the 1-day chart, only obviously with 4-hour bars instead of 1-day bars. And we have this massive increase in volume, 983 million volume in the last 4 hours alone. And I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. It's going to keep going. So something crazy happened here, some kind of catalyst caused this to occur. It could be something to do with the anniversary they had, but if somebody knows, please let us know. But needless to say, price is up significantly high. RSI is tragically overextended. So I would say at this point, be cautious with your entry. Pretty much the same song and dance here with the 1-day chart. So not much to extrapolate. Just bear in mind that the moving averages won't be tested for a while unless it comes crashing down. I feel like it'll come down, but it may not come down significantly. It'll probably split the difference here and start consolidating maybe around, 0.065 to 0.070. Okay, so that's just speculation here based on the technical data. Let's go ahead and move on to the 15-minute chart and see. Okay, so wow, a lot happened in this 30-minute period here. So in 30 minutes, the price jumped up from 0.51 to 0.080. Let's see what that is. That is a increase of 57%. It's quite a lot, right? So it would have been nice to be in there and then to trim some off the top here. But what's nice about the price is it doesn't look like it's falling down super quick. So just bear in mind, price action looks good right now. It could continue to make higher highs, but I would speculate based again on history and the way this coin has worked over the past few months that there's a strong likelihood that it will sell off and come back down. At least split the difference here from the very top to the very bottom, somewhere in the range of, I would say again, 0.065. So we'll see where that goes. I'll likely do another review of this soon so we can kind of see what happened. But for now, that's kind of my speculation. RSI is overextended again, so there's really no indicators here of a buy signal for me personally, based on what I've seen so far. Again, we haven't looked at the 1-minute chart yet, but I don't think there's going to be anything there that really impresses me. So what we can do before we go there is to identify some resistance levels, and I always like to draw my own. Sometimes in cases like this I will use the Fibonacci retracement tool. Maybe we'll use that on the 1-minute chart to see what the industry is telling us. But for right now, and let me turn this guy off, we are looking at, so well there's 2, yeah, so it hit 2 times. Let's just stick with the major resistance level of 0.085, and we'll see if that's tested again. It'll likely test this and reject if it excuse me, if it continues upwards. So we'll see what happens there. Also keep in mind with the VWAP right here, see this variance here, where the price action is significantly higher than where the volume weighted average price is. That to me is also an indicator that the price will reverse soon. So be very surprised if it passes this line and continues upward. I have a strong feeling it will max out pretty close to where it's at right now, and it'll start to sell off soon. But we will see. So let's take a look at the 1-minute chart. Now I always turn off these indicators here, the moving averages for the 1-minute chart, because the 50, 100, and 200-day moving average aren't super effective on this time frame. It might be more advantageous to consider maybe a 10 or a 20. I don't even bother, honestly, when it comes to a 1-minute chart. The VWAP is really all I need. But with what we see here, again, there's a significant variance between the volume weighted average price and the current price. So if you see what happened here, price shot up, but look at that difference in price. So let's see what that is. So this VWAP line that got rejected, or sorry, that the price shot down as soon as it got that high, at 31%. Okay, so it's upwards of 31% difference from the volume weighted average price to the current price. So if we look at this right here, 20%. So it has a little bit of room to grow, but keep in mind, we're going to be testing the resistance level very, very soon. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I feel like it's going to come back down. Needless to say, if you're going to take entry in this climate, be super careful and always wait for confirmation. You'll hear me say that. I'm probably a broken record by now if you've watched my videos before. But waiting for confirmation is extremely important, because if you don't do that, you're going to run into a situation where the price will reject on you and it'll reverse, and you'll be out and you'll have to wait for it to try to come back up again later. And sometimes it forces you to stay in a position longer than you want to be, especially if you're a newer trader and you're not used to just accepting a small loss. So if you're going to take entry on this, wait for the price to come down and hopefully let it test the volume weighted average price, the VWAP line, and to hold above for, I would say, at least 15 minutes. I usually recommend 30 to 45 with price action being as volatile as it is right now. But at this point, I can tell you that anything could kind of happen. So it's best to wait for confirmation to be safe. Don't take unnecessary risks. Okay. Furthermore, let's see. As far as we don't need to worry about the RSI and MACD on the 1-minute chart. Why don't we do this here? Why don't we take a look at the Fibonacci retracement tool, see if that sheds any light for us here. So again, with this here, you always start at the lowest point before it spikes up and get up to the highest point. And what's kind of cool about this, as you can kind of see here, right here at this line, is a pretty strong support level. You see a few times this was tested as a resistance. So what could likely happen is the price could come down and bounce off of this line here. So if you were to short right now and it comes down, you'd want to exit your position closer to this line just above. Because I always try to tell my viewers that it's important to not be greedy or to be less greedy than the next guy, right? Because the industry standards are to follow the Fibonacci retracement tool almost to a T. So as you can see, they're controlling the price here and here. So when that happens, you want to be very, very careful, and what you want to do is you want to take entry or sell just before they decide to do so. In other words, say you're in a position, just say you're in a position right here, and you're trying to get up to this little spot right here. What's best to shoot for that spot, because right around here they're going to try to sell everything off. So that's probably not the best example. Let me see if I can find a better one. Let's just say you took entry down here, right? And you got fortunate to be in before the spike, and it comes up, and you look at this retracement tool. You're like, okay, what do I do? How do I exit? Well, the best thing to do, before it gets all the way to the very top here, would be to consider selling just before that point, right? So somewhere in here or somewhere in here. So again, you never want to follow this to a T, but if you are ever going to follow it just below them and be a little less greedy than they are. Okay. Now this is a difficult thing to master. I wouldn't recommend you use this all the time. I only use it in situations where the price hikes up like this pretty fast to identify some support and resistance levels that are sometimes difficult to find based on the current price action. Okay, so there's something to note there. Let's go ahead and delete these guys here, and we'll see what happens next. But that would be my recommendation. So in whole, kind of what we're looking at here is to make sure that if you're going to take entry, I always recommend to wait for the volume weighted average price to be tested and to hold as a support level. Because at this point we're minus the major resistance line, which has been tested twice now at 0.085. We don't have anything else to go on, right? So I mean, we've got this, and we do also have support level here at 0.072. That's pretty much it. That's all we have to go on. So the way I see it is if the price comes down here and this support level and the VWAP are approximately on the same point, they'll both work together in tandem as a stronger support level. So a support line plus VWAP is much better than just a simple resistance line. Okay, so do yourself a favor and just be patient. Yes, there's a chance you could enter right now and the price could jump above the resistance level and shoot above. It could happen, there's no doubt. But if you see this pattern that's forming here, it's kind of concerning because it's deceiving, because a lot of times it does break out when we see that. But I don't feel comfortable and confident with the way things are right now to take entry, because I really just feel like the price is going to continue to recede and come down and possibly test this line again. And then at that point we'll know more so if it's worth taking entry. So, that being said, in summary, wait for the VWAP and the support level to be tested before taking entry. Unless you're planning to short, then you would maybe want to consider shorting if it tests the resistance level again and doesn't break. Just keep in mind, the more often a resistance or support level is tested, the more likely it's going to be broken later. So if that resistance line keeps getting tested, then it will eventually break above. And if it does break above, then that previous resistance line will become a very strong support. That's when things become strong. So now this one down here is technically stronger because it's been tested four times, and it was broken initially. So we're looking at a total of 5 times that this has been tested. So it creates a super strong support level. So I feel like the price shouldn't drop anywhere lower than 0.072. So the best entry point for you, of course, would be somewhere close to 0.072, and then to see if the VWAP holds as well as that support level. Yeah. So that's kind of my thoughts there. What are your thoughts? Feel free to comment below. Let us know what you're thinking. And if you have some fundamental insight, please include that as well. But I want to thank you very much for joining me here today. That is the end of the video, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you so much.